So welcome to everybody that's dropping by. If you're not familiar with this whole idea, this thought, this is something that we were doing. We've done quite a while. It goes back actually into the icon days, decontrol, decommand. But more recently, we started doing something out of our Burbank office, and it was really not just really a one-on-one kind of, hey, let's take a look at S6 or S4 as far as workflow, for a specific customer. It was more kind of a meeting of the minds and like sharing ideas and really trying to dive into see how people work and ideas for better workflow on the console. And those might not be necessarily the way that even the designers intended to use it, right? So it was really about kind of exploring the best ways to use the console and sharing ideas, whether you're in music or post. It doesn't matter how you use it. And there's certainly customers that wear a lot of different hats. And so that was kind of the inception of this idea, and obviously drinking good coffee. So that's kind of the idea with this. But in concept, kind of what I want to do with this, and I'll introduce Gil in a second here. But conceptually, I kind of want to expand it a little bit. And once we kind of get through what is this all about and why are we doing this and that kind of thing, I want to start the first 15 or 20 minutes of every session by basically going through a new workflow and showing you some functionality that hopefully is universally applicable to everybody's workflow. And I think the first one will be. And then we can discuss that, and any Q&A, we can kind of jump around and kind of explore there. But I want to open this up. This is not just S4. It's not just S6. We've got Matrix online. We have Matrix Studio online. We've got massive network-based systems, and it's really about solutions. And that's kind of what we do. We glue a bunch of technology together to solve problems and to hopefully allow you to solve problems in your production needs. And that's kind of what this is all about. That's why we've got all this gear. Gil Gowing is here with me, so I'm very grateful for that. And we're going to be able to talk a little bit about S6 as well. And so we often have the conversation about, what is the right solution? What is the right system for this particular customer? And we now have a kind of a wide range of options, both for S4 configurations and then entry-level S6s all the way up to a very massively expanded S6. So grateful for Gil being around on the session. This is going to evolve. We're going to start, and I've got a bunch of ideas kind of what we're going to do here. But again, I want to kind of give you, tee it up and kind of show you kind of what I think about this. I've also thought, if you have, if you want to kind of have specific questions or something pertaining, you can certainly throw stuff in the chat, and we can use that as well. If it's something that's really super technical and specific to your system, like an issue, let's take it offline. I'm happy to help. I know, I'm happy to go in and try to solve problems with you specifically, but don't want to take any time, waste people's time that might be a very unique scenario that you're experiencing just on your rig. So I'm happy to take that offline and help you with support. That's not a problem at all. So did somebody want to say something? Okay. So that's kind of where we're at. So the spirit of Coffee and Consoles is about A, drinking really good coffee, and B, exploring the technology, right? It's only as good as you kind of embrace, and the more that you kind of see how other people use it, you can really kind of ping off of that and learn new things and really kind of explore and dive into the technology. And I would say that that applies to S4, S6. That also applies to Matrix. It's like, how deep do you want to go down the Matrix? And you can do some really, really incredible and powerful things. And so hopefully in the short period of time we'll kind of expose you to some new ideas. And, I'm sure I'll learn some things as well from other people, but that's really the concept. That's the spirit of Coffee and Consoles. So.
And then and just to add on that real quick, Jeff is going to be doing the bulk of the presenting, but if you do have kind of any questions or anything, I will be monitoring the chat, and we can as we kind of go along, we definitely kind of want this to be interactive as well. So feel free to put your questions in there, and we'll do what we can to get those things answered for you.
Exactly. And so again, I kind of wanted to, we'll kind of say, hey to everybody, grab your coffee, how's it going? And that'll kind of be the start. And then I'm going to start each session, and we're going to try to do this kind of initially every month. We'll see how that goes. But I want to start the top of each session with a module. And I've kind of been doing things on the dock and some other places. And so I'm going to try to do about a 15, 18 minute kind of workflow and explain things that are probably not, you don't kind of understand completely, and maybe explain them a little bit better. And so that's the concept. So I'm going to jump in on that, and then we'll kind of discuss right after we get through that. So what are we going to do today? Well, let me just explain the UI, what you're seeing. Obviously, we're in Pro Tools, which is fantastic. I'm on an S4. We're going to see Gil's rig a little bit later in our time block. But I've got an S4. I've got 4-foot console, channel strip module, center attention, channel strip module, and then options module, which is composed of master meters, 2 knob attention zones, and then a master joystick. I also have over here, beyond the grazing sheep, I have a pack direct module that you can't see, but we can certainly bring that into to discussions in the future. So that's the console. That's S4. That's what you're seeing here. And then I have a way to basic that we can talk to the master touch module. And so we're going to certainly look at this, and we can look at workstations, and we can look at all kinds of fun stuff. So that's what you're looking at here. Okay. Cool. So we're going to look at, we're going to start on some preferences, which I think are really important. And the cool thing about this is there's actually a subset of these preferences that apply to all of the Yukon families, including U-Control. So if you understand kind of the idea behind some of this, you will understand not just S4, S6, but also, workflows with regard to S1 and dock and Avid control. So that's what I want to show you here today. So let's dig into this. And so we're going to, I'm going to go on the console. I'm going to go to press the settings button. And the thing that I want to look at today, we're going to scroll all the way down to the top. So this is, just to be very specific, this is the user settings. Now, just to differentiate, there are global settings. And the global settings are things like brightness and, what are the attributes you're saving back to your to the title or the Pro Tools session. That's all very important. But we're going to actually live right now and today on the user settings, okay? And this chunk of stuff that I want to start with and explain is this attention recently clicked a DAW area. And the some of the confusion with this is kind of comes along with regard to the fact that there's preferences that interact with each other. And that's where people can kind of get a little bit confused. So I want to kind of describe how this works, and you can choose the way you want to use it, but I want to show you kind of the intention of all of this, which I think is very powerful once you understand how it works. Okay. So basically, what is this saying? Well, it's saying, how do you want me to respond to things that you do in Pro Tools? That's really what this is. And so that track name that I just clicked says, if I click on guitar, I'm going to see that you've attention guitar. That is the kind of the first, most low level thing. Okay. So that's what this is about. It's interactions in Pro Tools that I do something or click somewhere that it's going to tell the console, hey, attention, or wake up, or draw some stuff on the available real estate. Okay, so we're going to start there. So I want to start, and we're going to start with some explicit functions. So what I mean by that, I consider plugins, pan, and sends to be explicit. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to, I'm going to go back to the home page, right? That is the lower button on your master module. And I'm going to go, and we're going to click on the Electric Guitar 32 track. I'm going to click on the Pro C2. I'm going to specifically click on it. And that's going to do a couple different things, right? That's going to actually attention Electric Guitar 32, which is right here. You can see on the attention fader. I specifically said, hey, I want to grab this plugin. So the next thing we want to look at is we're going to go back to the local options, and we're going to look at this particular option, this preference here. What is this? This says display knobs from most recently clicked DAW area. Basically, what this is saying is, if I click somewhere in Pro Tools, you get to pick where you want to put that data, right? That's what I'm talking about. So right now it's set to second expand knob module. What does that mean? Well, okay, let's just come out of here for a second, go to settings, and go to surface, and just show the visual representation of the console. So the first attention knob zone is, in my case, generally EQ, because that's what I've chosen. And then the second one is dynamics. That's number 2. That's arbitrary. That could be 1, that could be 2. It's however you want to set it up. But this orientation, you see the green and the magenta, Gil and I kind of both come from the world of D control and D command. And that is a very concise way to control an EQ, right, from this type of interface. And so this is zone 1, this is zone 2. Okay, so just wanted to kind of set that up. Let's go back to home and local options. Local options is the little gear. And back into this preference. And again, some of these preferences are so wordy. The description of them is really hard to kind of wrap your brain around. What the heck is he trying to say with, display knobs for most recently clicked DAW area? But all it means is if I click on something in Pro Tools, where do you want me to put that data? That's really all it's saying. So if I choose a first expand knob module, what's going to happen? Well, if I explicitly click on a plugin, let's choose something different. Let me go to a black box right now on, we'll go to a black box on right here and click on this. So I clicked on it, and basically the console said, oh, he wants to attention that track, which is, in this case, it's the guitar delay, and he wants me to show the parameters for the thing he clicked on, which is black box, which is insert parameters, in the zone that he picked, right? So just back into this. First expand knob module, that's what I defined as first. And so, hey, there's my black box. And up above, it says he didn't tell me to do anything different. So I'm just going to do what I normally do, which is compression, which is dynamics. Okay. We're going to change this to, I would actually prefer to have this on the second expand knob. Now, again, if you're going to on S6, you got more options. You've got, multiple knob attention zones. You got expand faders that you can target. And that's what you're seeing in this pop-up list. And you can do combinations thereof, and we'll kind of explain that as well. But let's just change it up just so you can see and understand what's going on there. We're going to go to second now, right? So I'm going to go and we're going to click on, it doesn't matter. Let's just go to a delay, timeless 2, okay? So what did it do? Well, it attentioned that track, which is bridge guitar. I can see bridge guitar's attentioned, right? And down below, I didn't have anything to change, so I have EQ as normal. But up above, I have my delay, right? In this case, it's timeless. It loaded that thing that I clicked that was attentioned into the place that I told it to go. Okay, so that's what's going on there. So now to expand that idea, right? Basically, as I said before, we're going to go back to settings user. Plugins, pan, and sends are explicit functions. And what I mean by that is they are, if you look at the function scroller in Pro Tools on the master module, right? You have sends, you have inserts, obviously the concept of inserts, and you have pan. Those are explicit functions that are on the function scroller. And so as such, if we go in here and I've now told it to respond to clicking on a pan, if I go and actually go maneuver the micro panner here, what's going to happen? Well, basically it said attention that track, which is the acoustic guitar comp, and load it into the zone that I chose. And in this case now, here's your 2-knob panning, right, on the on that track, because it loaded that into that zone. Okay, so those are explicit. Do the same thing with a send, right? Go to a different track, click on a send, pop the send up. Cool, send is loaded into, sends are now loaded into that zone. Okay, so that's what that's doing. So very, very explicit. So now let's contrast that with some of the other functions in here, right? So we started talking about track name and fader and edit window and other things. If we go to track name, we're saying I'm allowing you to be triggered by a track name. So we'll go back into the home page for a second here, and I'm going to click on eGuitar 32. The effect of doing that now is basically, let's just go back. Yeah, let's click on eGuitar 32. The effect of doing that is going to attention that track, and because track name has no specific function associated with it, like my track can contain heat, it can contain, preamps, sends, inserts, dynamics, EQs, parameters, it can contain anything. So how do I know what to show you in the clicked zone? It doesn't know. And because it doesn't know, what it's going to do is it's going to follow what you define on this page. Excuse me. And on this page, I have, for my first zone, I've got EQ. That's what I chose. Second, and then the backup is inserts any. Inserts any is chain. All the inserts stacked so that I can dive into one of them. The second zone I've chosen is dynamics, right? And again, the backup is inserts any in this case. So basically, any of the functions that, if we go back to settings, any of the functions like track name or fader or edit selection move up down, and I'll explain that in a second, those are just going to follow what you choose and you prefer on that homepage local options. So edit selection move up down, that's actually a handy one. That's the P and semicolon, right? And so I can actually, you'll see the console lighting up just by me nudging up or down, right? And that's what that's doing. And you can see it's loading in a Dyna EQ. So what if there's no Dyna EQ? Let's go up to the end track here. And it says, oh, I have a compressor, right? I have something that qualifies as Dyna, but I don't have any EQ. So I'm going to show you inserts any, which is essentially a chain view. So from here, I can say, okay, what do we got here? Well, we've got, looks like there's a pro multiband splitter, right? You can see the crossovers. I can back out. We can go into a big black box, which is fun. I can back out. So basically, that's the backup function. It says, I don't have an EQ, but I'm going to show you inserts any, right? That's what that's doing. And if we nudge down one, it's going to go, it's going to resume what it was doing, right? So that's P and semicolon. And those are the functions like track name, fader, edit window, edit selection, move up, down. Those are going to follow what you choose on your homepage for first expand knob, second expand knob, and even expand fader, right? Depending on your preferences, okay? So that is, that's the beginning. So I would be remiss if I didn't explain a couple other concepts in here that are really important. So that's kind of the start of this conversation. This is all about how to best use your real estate. Now, the other thing that's really important to understand is on the bottom of the page in here, I have something called function and knob page selected on attention change. I have mine set to pan. What is that doing? Well, it's basically saying if I attention a track on the desk, I press guitar, or I press, E-Guitar 32, or whatever I press, I want to see, in this case, I want to leverage the Master Touch, the panner, because maybe I'm doing some Atmos panning or whatever I'm doing. I want that. So I've chosen to show that on the Master Touch module, okay? And that is isolated to that. Okay, let's take it one step further. There's a preference under settings, user, and you have to, unfortunately, scroll down all the way to the bottom to get to it. And basically it is open windows on workstation attention. It's right here. And so I generally have that turned off, but I want to explain what it does and how it works. It basically says, and it works in conjunction with another preference. That's where this gets a little confusing. So in here, check this out, open windows on workstation when knobs are assigned. So what's going to happen when I attention a track? Well, I told it that the master module is going to be lit up with pan. So it's going to have pan. So if I choose to target the master module in conjunction with that other preference, and I now press, whatever, bridge guitar, hit attention, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to attention that particular track, and it's going to show whatever I choose to show, okay? So let me just, let's go back here one more step, and we'll take a look at something here. And okay, so back into the settings. Okay, so I want to, I'm going to close the pan window. Now the pan window can also be grabbed or addressed from the soft keys. And we have dedicated kind of plug-in window that you can close and pan window. But I'm going to go back to the bridge guitar or the guitar and kind of want to target some of these tracks and kind of show you what's here. And so on attention, we have, let's just take a look here. We're saying basically when the function and knob changes, show me pan. Okay, that's the first thing. Open windows on workstation when knobs are assigned. Look at the master module. And if I click on something, I can have that pop up as well, right? Okay, so right now, that popping up is following the second knob zone. Okay, so let's back up a second. I don't want to get too kind of into the weeds, but I want to explain these a little bit better. You have the ability to have the console recognize when you touch something, right? So it recognized that I touched a plugin, and that can be defeated by filtering right here. Okay, so this says open windows when editing mode, right? Right now it's off. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, it's basically, I'm saying I want you to wake up if I grab a dynamics or an EQ or a pan, and you have the granularity to choose how that works. So I'm going to say only plugins in pan. Okay, I don't care about sends in this case. So now when I go and grab the joystick, right, it's going to draw the pan window, right, because I told it to. If I go and grab the compressor, it's going to grab that window. If I go and grab the EQ, it's going to grab that window. Okay, so I have the ability to choose what I want to see. Okay, there is also, and I kind of started down that road a little bit, the ability to open windows when something's attentioned. And so that you may or may not want that behavior. But if I click that, right, and we go back into here, and let's actually attention a track, and I can attention a track multiple ways, right? I can do it with the P or semicolon, right? And so if you check this out, I'm using the nudge. I said basically follow my nudge, and I'm nudging up or down, and check it out. It's actually opening the pan window, right? Why is it opening the pan window? Because I said open window on Workstation when knobs assigned, look at the master module, which it is, in combination with open windows on Workstation attention. Now, I'm not saying I don't prefer this, but I want you to understand kind of why it's doing that. So on attention, I'm not clicking on a specific function, or even simpler, I can just click on guitar. It is saying attention guitar, which it did, right? And it says, hey, I want you to open windows from the DAW because I attentioned you. What window do you want me to open? And then you have to come over to the local options here and see. It's opening the master module window, the associated function in there. Let's just, so you can see what this does, let's change that. Let's set the function and knob selected on attention change to EQ, just so you can see the behavior change, right? So we're going to say EQ. So this says when I change attention to another track, put EQ on the master module, right? And so check this out. What's going to happen now? If we go nudge down, it is going to follow the EQ, right? And it's going to bring up the window. And that behavior is independent of the stuff that I'm doing on the attention knob. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, again, personally, I don't like this. I don't like windows popping up on my workflow ever. But just to understand why that works, when an attention is triggered, it is going to open a window. I don't personally want that. And maybe you want to get even more specific. You just want to say, you know what? I want touch to work, which is right here. And I only want touch to respond to plugins. That's totally up to you also, right? So let's just back up another second. Let me close that window. We will go and attention the electric guitar 32. And oh, you know what? Let me turn this off because I'm not a fan of this right now. So I'm going to turn off I don't want a window to pop up when something attentions. So I'm turning that off specifically. And in general, I want pan to be the thing that defaults to the master touch module. And that's just totally up to you, whatever you want, right? I'm going to re-attention electric guitar 32. And I'm going to close this just so you can see. If I grab the joystick, you're going to see it on the master touch, right? X, Y, Z, right? That all works. But no window popped up. If I do grab a plugin, window pops up, right? Window pops up. Or if we go, let's go up to the track. What was our track? N track, right? That was our example that had no EQ, right? Same conversation. I can pop into an Oxford reverb and I can control that, right? But the point being is it's not going to bring any windows for other things like pan or send because I chose to filter those, okay? So that is, let's just do one more thing. There's always one more thing, isn't there? But just to kind of wrap it all together. So the first thing that we started down the path of, which is really important, this says, in general, I would have you not check every box here. And I want to super caution you to the edit window one. I think that's kind of a disaster in general. When you turn edit window on, it's really dicey because think about it. Everywhere you click, any possible clicking interaction on the timeline is going to cause an attention. And personally, I think it's a really bad idea. So I would not do that. But I would really think about your workflow and start with all of these off and basically turn only the ones on that make sense. And in my case, personally, I generally like the explicit functions and maybe nudge. And that's kind of how I would do it. So which means if I explicitly click on a track that's got soothe on it, it's going to bring it up. It's going to attention that track. Fine. That's cool. It'll load it in if I need to. If I want to nudge up, I can nudge up. And that's going to follow the default behavior of dyne and EQ. Makes total sense. If I attention from the console, I get default behavior. That's fine. But I don't have to really kind of work around, I can rename a track and not have to worry about colliding, things like that. One last thing I want to mention, and we'll kind of dig in and chat a bit, is with regard to swapping. I just want to mention this real quick. You're not locked into what is here. Right? And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, if you're looking at the master touch module, let's go back to Electric Guitar 32 for a second. If I touch sends is a good one because if you have your, I would recommend in general, at least starting out, to set the knob view to be all functions and not selected functions. Why? Well, because on attention, I've said, I want to see panning. We already talked about that. That's fine. But if I want to swap something else in here quickly, maybe I want to look at sends, maybe I want to look at mic pre-controls, heat, whatever, right? I can literally just go to sends and I can bring sends over, or I can bring heat over, or I can bring pan over, or something I just want to get to for some moment. Hey, I want to two-knob pan this, or I want to, control the send. And it's just touch. You either touch or touch the switch, or you touch and touch the knob. Either one, it flashes to say, hey, I'm waiting for you to do something, right? And now there's the send to the slapper and there's the send to the Stratus. And you notice it did not bring up send windows, right? But it could. If you want to see the send window in Pro Tools, you can explicitly set that. And again, that is right down here. That says, hey, you know what? I want to see plugins, pans, and sends. I want to see the kitchen sink, right? And so now when I grab this, you should see sends, right? And again, these are what the preferences are all about. You don't have to turn them all on. I would say do not turn them all on because then you've got windows flying up around and it can be very distracting. So I would say start with a very smaller subset of what you really use all the time. And maybe that's just plugins. You start with only plugins, and that would kind of be more kind of similar to what Icon did, back in the day, is just defaulting to attentioning or focusing a track based on a plugin. Okay. Okay, so I'm obviously long-winded, but that's fine. I wanted to kind of tee that up and just start to introduce some of these really important preferences that are confusing. I agree, and they require more explanation so that you can wrap your head around the best way to use it. And it's not my way; it's the base. What makes sense for what you're doing, right? You might be doing more mix and editorial. You might be doing more editorial than mix, whatever. But let's open it up. Any questions about anything we talked about with this particular stuff so far? Let me bring my little view up here. Don't be shy. Anything anybody doesn't understand, there's no nobody's going to scorn you. Okay, what I want to do.
So hang on, Jeff. So
go ahead.
I don't know if you're looking at the chat. So Craig just asked, is there any chance you'd be willing to provide your typical settings to the group?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. I think that's a really good idea. And the console can be daunting because, so let's talk about settings real quick. What are settings? There's actually a whole bunch of settings, and that's why it can be really kind of intimidating. There is user settings, right, which is the majority of the stuff that we just talked about, like attentioning, things like that, right? That's this stuff, and this window is getting out of control, quite honestly. But then there's also the globals, which you can do shift setting, which this is also really important. This says I want to save my expand faders back to Pro Tools or back to my title files. I want to save my spill zone states. That stuff's really important too. And then obviously, what is the brightness of your OLEDs versus your knobs versus your displays? That's important too. And things like, do you want to have all these preferences like the user preferences, right? Do you want to have all the knob ballistics and all this stuff change when a new session changes? I would say mostly no, because that's dangerous. Because if you get a session from another person you're collaborating with that has a console and you want their title, you want their layouts, but oh my God, the speed of your knobs and the contrast and like everything changed. That's really dicey. So in general, I would say don't save user preferences with the Pro Tools session. A better way to do that is to actually come to the settings page and explicitly load or save a set as an XML, right? And that way, and you can save an A, B, and C set. And yes, I'm happy to save to share all of my settings, and I'll have to put it together and kind of do a little homework, because I'm always in an experimental state and problem solving state. But I absolutely know what I want to use. So the better recommendation is do not save your preferences with the template, unless you live in a bubble and it's always you and you're never collaborating with other people. But be advised, that could be very dicey, because you just saw a very small section of interactions I showed you with the attention DAW clicking. And imagine opening a session just to get title, to get layouts, and all of that just changed, right? That can be really frustrating. So be advised, I would better off just save the XML as the settings here. And that is not just these settings, it's also the local home gear stuff that we talked about. That's in the same file. They're on multiple pages, but they're all in the same actual file. So that's really important. And then the additional conversation there part is the concept of soft keys, which is a whole nother 6-hour presentation by me and Gil. But no, seriously, these also have an XML, and that you should save freely. And if you have multiple people working on a console in a facility, you want to have the Bob set, the Jim set, the Joe set, the Gil set, and it's just a simple file away. It's very simple. So the long-winded answer to Craig's question was, yeah, I will absolutely make available my XML, but you should basically save your own. You can import mine, but do a load and save. Don't have the preferences auto as default load from the session, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I put both Jeff and I's email address in the chat. So if you want to receive those, just email us at those email addresses, and we'll compile some things and we'll get that stuff out to you.
Yep. Let's just before because I don't want to run out of time for Gil, let's flip over. I want to show you Gil's rig a little bit, and just a really brief discussion of folders, because in my opinion, one of the most powerful things that we've done in Pro Tools in forever, and on the console in forever, is folders. So I want to show you Gil's insanely cool setup and just show a little bit about folders.
All right. Can everybody see that?
Absolutely.
All right. Let me hide our controls here. All right. So yes, basically, like Jeff said, he's got an S4, 4 foot wide. I have an S6 5 knob with display modules, 5 foot wide, and have it set up in a way that obviously makes sense to me. I have 16 channel strip faders over here on my left side, master module and automation module sitting in the center. And then I have a fader module in Bay 4 that is kind of what I kind of keep as a right spill master for the right spill zone. And then I've got joystick post module above that. And then normally what I have that far right fifth bay set up as are expand faders and expand knobs. Now, like Jeff said, I mean, we've had VCAs for a long time, but then last year with the advent of folders, it's really kind of taken managing your Pro Tools session to a whole other level. And when you take that and you put it where you can actually do a really extensive job of being able to manage on a surface, it's pretty mind-boggling what you can do. So one of the things I like to do, I mean, I think back in the day we used to, on the Icon, we used to have to build a custom fader set or whatever to bring the VCAs up. So with the concept of spill zones here on S6, we've got a left zone and a right zone. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Hmm.
Just want to make sure we had technical issues last week, and I want to make sure that we're still going good. So, like I said, what I like to do is I've got this fader module here that I like to specify putting kind of my either folder track masters in or VCA masters, whatever I'm happen to be using for a navigational purpose. So it's real easy to do. You just hit the right spill switch on the master module. I go to type, come down here, hit folder, and basically now I have, it basically pulls every single folder track that is it's currently showing in the session and puts it over here in the spill zone. I have more than 8, so I could come over here and make sure that this spill switch is highlighted white so I can use the track nudge buttons. Or very simply, if this is something that, hopefully all you guys on the call are power users, but if you don't know this, one of the really cool things we've added for a while is the user 1 and 2 bucket on any one of the fader modules. If it happens to be in a bankable zone, those will actually bank that actual zone's faders for you. So I can just easily come down here and get to any faders that I want to, or any of the folder tracks that I want to in this 8-channel bucket. So real easy. I've got preference set up under settings for attention tracks, just like we've been able to do with VCAs for quite some time. I've got it set up for being able just to quickly, when I attention a folder track, it puts it in what I wanted to be the left spill zone. So I can come over here and I'm going to focus my drum folder, and then there's all my drums. I know that we are in a spill because it basically put the folder track that I attentioned on the attention fader on the master or the automation module. It's in a really bright green, and then all of the folder members are sitting here in the zone, and you can tell that that's a little bit lighter colored green. Any one of those, I can come in now and attention any one of those specific tracks to be able to say, I want to pull up maybe my kick drum, and I want to get to the EQ and the dynamics of that. Easily attention those things in, and then when I'm done, I can either hit any one of these light green buttons over here on a track, the menu button on the spilled channels, or I can just hit the green button over here in my spill zone, and just so easily be able to quickly navigate around a session without having to build layouts or any of these things. You can just, and like I said, this works and has worked this way with VCAs for quite some time, but as Jeff said, folders now are really, it really kind of takes it to a whole other level of what we can do, not only with navigation, but then actual, do your subgroup processing all within one channel instead of having to have multiple channels to do that stuff with. So
yeah, that's the really cool thing, is the idea that, yeah, VCAs were great because you could get to a bunch of stuff. You could attention one of the members in the group, right, the snare top or something, and then but the routing folder is even better because you can process, EQ, dyne, whatever harmonic on the whole drum bus from your attention zone, and then reattention the snare, so you've got the benefit of all of that with VCAs, plus processing and controlling the stuff on the routing folder, which is super exciting.
Yep. And then another really cool thing that, I'm sure we'll do a much more expanded session on this at some point, but just wanted to point this out. If you look at the display module up at the top of this kind of third bay that I've kind of had this spill zone set in, I've got that set up as my master display module with basically with 3 different rows of faders. My top row basically are all of my subgroup routing folder faders for the session that I'm working on. And then below that, I actually have a number of different sources, whether I'm working in Atmos, stereo, have renderers from a couple of different machines coming back for the different rendered down mixes and things. I have all of that metering up there on that particular master module, which you've got the other channels that basically showing your waveforms and all the other really great things that S4 S6 can show up on those display modules. But I don't know that we give enough attention to that master display module and how really dependent you can come, because the really great thing about that is you can bank around, spill things out as you need to, and that's always a constant that you can look to and know exactly what's going on in your session and with your entire monitoring system. So very, very cool to be able to do that. Just wanted to mention that real quick, Jeff.
Awesome, cool. Well, that's actually probably a really good segue. I'm gonna steal the share.
Yep.
Steal the share within a share within a share within a share. Okay, so back to here. That's a really good segue. So I've actually brought up the monitor controls on the Master Touch module, and you're basically looking at all my insane amounts of sources up here, and DVS is currently lit up, and you can actually see Snarky Puppy on the DVS there. And if I hit play on another, I've got another machine attached. That's actually playing back a stereo session right now. So that is actually, I want to show you that. And we did mention Matrix, and Matrix is an important part of this conversation. So I want to show you a couple different other things in my crazy land of Matrix. Basically MBY, which you can see right here, this is actually a separate Pro Tools system, which is connected via DigiLink. So we're leveraging the goodness of DigiLink, right, to actually connect systems. So you can see in my patch bay, I've got a DigiLink card. I actually got multiple DigiLink cards, but in my Matrix frame, right, I have the ability to, and this is how you would attach another system, whether it's a VI rig or it's a stem recorder, dubber, whatever. I've got massive expansion capabilities here, right, and that's where this is going. So this is the monitoring component, which just happens to be stereo of that other rig, and here's the patch points, and you can see there's basically 64 channels connected. Let's flip over to the share within a share. And this is another system hooked up via HD Native Thunderbolt. And if we just go and look at the hardware setup, you can see it's using a DigiLink card in the 6th slot of the Matrix, and it's passing bidirectionally 64 channels of I/O, right? And so again, this is just a stereo music session, but it certainly could be a stem recorder, for post-production. There's so many applications of how this can be used. But the one really important part of Matrix is the monitoring construct, right? Here's my Dante virtual sound card, which can monitor. I've got it set up to do up to 7.1, and then Pro Tools up to 7.1.2, and then instruments, Moog stuff, the output of the Dolby renderer. As Gil said, the re-renders, right? I can listen to any of the re-renders coming out of the renderer, and obviously we've got, all of that we can set up and work on in here. And then let's just go back to Dad for a second. So not only can I monitor and choose what I want to listen to for all of these various sources, and if you want to get really crazy too, I just hooked up an iPad, which is right here, and that's actually coming over the new Audinate's got a USB-C AVIO. So basically that's pretty neat. You can, and Gil's been doing this long before I did because he's always bleeding edge, but you can leverage any virtual instruments or even ingest to an iPad directly over the Dante network. And so I think that's really compelling because there's some amazing instruments, and like, for example, sampler, you can't really see it in that shot, but let's go back to Pro Tools for a second. Oh yeah, you can see it. I'm sorry, I got too many things. There's some incredible, stuff and interesting manipulation tools on the iPad. And that Audinate AVIO allows you to get input and output onto the Dante network. So definitely wanted to mention just the insane power and potential and flexibility of Matrix. And one more thing here. You can aggregate. You can go really pretty nuts. I've got right now on this network, there's actually multiple matrices. There's a Matrix Studio. There's a MOM, and MOM is... without going in too deep, it's a little remote control that you get to program, and you can set up your stuff for the control room, and then you can have different layers. So I have a layer 4 for Zoom for Nexus, right? Basically, I can turn sources on, I can send you sources, I can attenuate, dim, I can fold down, and so layer 4 is for Zoom, layer 1 is for the control room, and that's a little PoE connected piece of hardware. But the point of this is that you've got really incredible control all over the network, all in one interface, both for sending and returning I/O to Pro Tools, multiple Pro Tools rigs, and then incredibly comprehensive monitoring. And all that monitoring, as Gil said, I'm leveraging, we'll flip back over to this. I'm leveraging the master meter, right, to be able to see whatever I want to see. And those can be anything from mono up to 712 wide. And you get to choose how many of those you want to see on a display at once. Okay. Okay, we're all over the place, but that's kind of fun. Any questions so far? I will keep going freely, but I just want to make sure I'm not stepping in anybody that wants to double click on something or wants more clarity.
Yeah, don't be shy, everybody. We're all here.
Okay, so then I'm going to keep talking. So what I wanted to show is I want to kind of glue a couple things together. I think is really important. So we'll flip back to Dad for a second. I've got a second rig over here on my laptop. That's HD Native Thunderbolt. That's hooked up to DigiLink on the primary matrix, right? You're monitoring that on MBY, right? If I want to actually listen to that, that's right here. That's returning into my control room section, which is not just near fields. It actually is also, stereo speakers, Atmos, or I can send that to any talent. And just to unravel the wormhole a little bit further, I've got, Dante patches into a Clang, which is, I actually have a Focusrite AM2 also, but I prefer the Clang. It's got lower latency. But the Clang has basically got 4 separate cues, right? And it's the same chipset that the Brooklyn 2 that's in the Matrix as a 64-channel option. So I can send, and then if we go back to our monitor section, the Clang is being fed Dante, let's go back to Pro Tools. The Clang is up here, right? So there's the first, second, third, and fourth cue mix of the Clang. And so if I want to listen to, Pro Tools HDX, that's Dante. I don't even know what Bob is. That was probably for some goofy explanation of something. D, I'm currently listening to the return because I've got a conduit created in Matrix to do zoom. But, if I want to listen to the binaural output of the renderer, I can absolutely do that. I can also listen to discrete cues that were created for talent mixes in Pro Tools, and those would be DigiLink, right? So I just want to kind of glue together all this concept of not only monitoring different types of analog and digital sources, but also metering those sources on the master meter module, and then being able to patch and route. And again, all of that is happening within DAD. I'll show you a couple other kind of fun things while we're here. And actually, before I forget, I'm sorry, I'm probably over caffeinated, but that's okay. On the console, and you're only seeing a little chunk of the left because I've kind of got my zoom settings set. There's a really handy kind of quick trick to just quickly bring up another workstation. So if you go to the workstations page, you can see the second rig is record, and that's the laptop that I just showed you, which is, again, playing back that stereo music session. But if I just want to bring that up really quickly, it's super handy. You can literally just go left spill, and you go workstations, and you press that rig. And so now, when that's playing back, I have now you can see all my folders for, effects, drums, verb, etc. And as Gil said, user 1 and 2 is a great way to quickly bank through. I just quickly brought up the tracks on another workstation. That's what that's doing, okay? So I wanted to show you that, which I think is really pretty slick and very a very efficient way to operate. And again, I've got a very small console compared to Gil's. I've got left zone, right zone. And on the right side, I'm working with the VCA, and I'm dove in. So I'm going to press the menu switch, and I say, hey, let's go look at the B3s. And we're going to now kind of fill up the zone with controlling some different elements. So I'm going to attention the B3. And, there's my pan for that. And obviously, it's going to give me that default behavior that we talked about before, which is EQ. And then when I'm done with the B3s, I basically menu out. I'm back to my tree of whether you're doing folders or VCAs, either way. And we'll go back into the guitars. Okay, so now we're back into the guitars, and let's go into XYZ mode. So Shift Y on the joystick panner is going to give me X, Y, and Z. Okay, and so that's what that's doing. So definitely leveraging zones is really powerful because you have multiple kind of slots or containers that you can shelve things. And in this case, hey, this separate rig, which might be a recorder, is over here, right? And I'm currently working on my primary rig here, which is an Atmos music session. Okay. Let's see. One more thing I want to show you. There's always one more thing, isn't there? This is kind of fun. You may not know about this, but this is a neat little trick. If you go into your monitor profile in Matrix or Matrix Studio, there's a neat thing in here. And this was created for really for feeding external, like TC or DK external meters, right? RTW hooked up via digital, in most cases AES EBU or Dante. But this is actually pretty clever. I've created conduits. This is a 714 and this is a stereo, but you can create multed outputs, either pre or post fader, that follows your control room. And so in some cases, I actually want to send whatever the control room, whatever I'm listening to, that source, I can actually send it to a whole nother system. And in this case, that's what this is doing. It's going out of Dante, a multi-channel Dante stream at the same time. And so what does that mean? Well, it's pre-fader, whatever source I'm actually listening to, in this case it's DVS, that's not only going to my control room, which right now is 2.1, but it could be Atmos, could be 5.1. Those are my different outputs. But that's also now being multed to a different workstation over Dante, right? And it's also going to my iPad, which was just kind of experimental because I wanted to re-record. I wanted to try re-recording some stuff on here, and I did actually successfully do that with the AVIO. So
hey
anyway,
Jeff, I know this. It's very possible that everybody on this call already realizes this, but I mean, one of the things that you kind of look at DADman and you figure out ways to do things that we don't normally have the ability to do, and you like you just did there with the meters. Why don't you talk a little bit about speaker solos and fold downs?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, and I'm going to bring up the monitor page here again. If you press the lower setup button, you're going to get to just a quick orientation on this. Sources, we already talked about. These are basically these A, B, C, D. Let me just show this real quick because that's important. These are, if you look at my setup, I've got control room and I've got monitor A through D and Nexus. The important thing here is if you right click on a monitor, as far as the S4 or S6, or actually even, if you're doing U-control with a dock, stuff like that, as far as the control surface is concerned, you have to tell it what each monitor is doing. So basically, the control room is the control room. Monitor A is monitor A. So you have to define that. And now you can think about that. The control room it could actually be rerouted to monitor A. Totally up to you, but I just wanted to kind of define that and explain that. The fold downs, right? So what was the idea here was, I'm going to go back to what Gil was saying. We wanted to create, especially for immersive audio. Now, if you go to the lower soft keys, there's some fun stuff you can do here. There's a control room button on the extras, and that'll bring up the same monitor functions that you have up here, down here. Now, to be super blunt, the speaker section, which right now is LR and LFE, but if I switch over to, let's just go to my mains, it's going to be 714. The speaker section's not great in terms of like being able to quickly say, let me hear LCR, right? That's where it kind of falls down because it's either, I have to either turn off everything else or just turn on those three. So it requires multiple button presses. So the workaround that I kind of came up with, which I think is very viable, is to leverage fold downs. And you've got plenty of them. I think there's at least 16 in here. And a fold down can be created to just turn on speakers. So a perfect example of that is I just want to hear my elevation speakers. And in my case, it's just 4. There's 4 speakers, right? I just want to have one button press, turn on elevation speakers. And that's actually what you're seeing right here is, right here. You see the little, and I'm going to show you this in DADman, solo C, solo LC, solo LSS, solo, here we go, solo tops. Okay, so what is that? Well, it's a very quick way to listen to specific channels, especially if you've got a lot of speakers. How do you do that? Well, you go back over here. Let's go into the monitor profile. And if you go into, and actually, I think we've got some stuff assigned. This might be, Yeah, there's a little bit of weirdness with the with dark mode in DADman, but you'll get the idea here. Let me see here. Let me just change this real quick because this is a known issue. It's being worked on. Go back to light. I'm going to brighten everybody's day here for a second. So let's just go to solo tops, okay, or solo quad or whatever. Basically, what you're doing is, depending on however wide your setup is, right? It could have 8 speakers. You could have 22 speakers, whatever you have. Let's just go pick a 9-1. Let's just pick a 714 just to show you this. Basically, all you've got to do is come in here and set a 0 for the unity, basically, for the channels that you want to isolate. And that's all this is. So if I wanted to quickly get LCR soloed, I would basically just go L, R, C. Okay. And now that is a preset that I can press one button, and that is quad, but let's just, we can change that quickly. That I could then press with a button on the console to just instantly listen to LRC, right? This is the front axis. So hopefully that makes sense. So I would actually go into left rear. Here, I'll just do this real quick. So left rear is, so I'm looking at the intersection of left rear and right rear, okay? And that is quad. And then if you look at where that's at in the control room, it's right here, solo quad, right? It's been assigned, add fold down. It's been added to my fold downs, and it's gonna show up here too. Right, it shows up here and solo quad right here and right here. Okay. So it's it's kind of a workaround for, quickly, and you get to choose what you want. And there's really, you can have a million fold downs, but you get to choose what you want to build. And it's a nice little kind of hack, if you will, to quickly isolate certain channels without actually doing reduction, right? Normally a fold down is choosing the speakers it's going to and then doing attenuations, right, based on certain equations. But in this case, we're just saying, nope, just only send through certain channels. That's really what that's doing.
Yeah, and just so everybody is clear, what we're talking about here, not only for Matrix, but this is also totally pertinent for Matrix Studio as well. So any of our kind of upper end monitoring solutions that are Uconized or not, you don't even have to use them via Ucon, but obviously when you are talking about bigger S4, S6 surfaces, you probably do have some type of Matrix Studio attached to it, because you do need a more complex Ucon controlled monitor controller. This is all viable for both Matrix and Matrix Studio.
Yep. The other thing that I think I mentioned really briefly, but it's maybe a little bit more of a conversation. We'll defer to next time. I was going to start to talk about some Atmos stuff, but that's a whole nother discussion that I think we should defer to next time. So yeah, I mean, thanks for everybody for hanging out. Please, reach out an email if there's, specific things that you're curious about, or you've got troubles, we can help you with that, or things you want to dig into further next time. As you can see, we've got a lot of things we can show. And again, it's not about having the largest console with the most attached, source workstations and recorders and stuff. It's really about how you use what you have. I would argue that, somebody that's mastered a 8 or 16 fader S4 or S6 can do incredible stuff, right, on a relatively small console. And it's just about really using the sections in a very efficient way. So those are kind of the ideas that I think we want to try to portray more of, again, workflows, tips, tricks, efficiencies, hacks, like the fold downs. There's all kinds of neat things. I've learned from people. I've learned stuff from Gil. He's learned from me. I've learned from people in the field. That's really what this is all about.
I learned today, just listening to some of the stuff that, Jeff is really great about, looking at everything that's available and really getting the most out of it. And I'm very appreciative to be able to learn from somebody like him all the time.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it's time to wrap and to go get more coffee. So thanks for hanging out. We will make, somebody asked, we will make these recordings available to anybody that joined. And so if you want to rewatch it, you certainly can.
And also,
So,
however you found out about this, we'll, make sure that if you have any topics that you want us to kind of cover, you've obviously got our emails that we put up there in the chat today. You can reach out to us or any one of us from Avid on here, Jake, Jay, Tony, Bill, Andrew. There's been plenty of us around that can get those topics too, and we'll, like I said, we'll definitely make sure. And as we come up and we have the next date go out, feel free to pass this along to other people that you might think they might be able to get something out of this. This is, we definitely want this to be, a way for, users or people that are just interested in this to kind of get together on an informal basis and just look at these different workflows and be able to kind of talk through some of this stuff. So
absolutely. So thanks to you guys. Thanks to Gil. And we will see you next time.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.